And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Talking Sports. I'm Sergeant Rock. Running into the room is Mike Cox, and coming in here a little bit later will be Joe Stovall. Here's what we're going to be talking about this afternoon. The San Francisco Giants are World Series champions. And of course, you know, I hate that. I was rooting for the Royals all the way because I've been giant hating.
Indeed.
Can you call it that?
Yeah, you can call it that.
Yeah, I'm giant hating. So, what else we got? The Fighting Illini knocked off Minnesota last Saturday at the homecoming game. That was a pretty decent football game.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to talk about
Pretty decent football game. Also, the college playoff picture is starting to take shape, and it's loaded with SEC teams. What's up with that?
Ain't a better conference.
Also, Champaign Central and Champaign Centennial are in the high school playoffs. Joe will have plenty to say about that. And Sergio McLean will be taking his daddy's spot. He'll be the interim head coach for the Champaign Central Maroons basketball team, which their preseason practice or something like that gets underway in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that as well. We got all that and more coming up on this edition of Talking Sports. You be sure to stay tuned.
Welcome back. Spookville 2014.
Is that what it is?
I'm sitting next to the Crypt Keeper.
That be me.
Samuel.
Somebody asked me today are you going to any Halloween parties tonight? And if so, what are you dressing up as?
And your response was?
No.
Myself.
Yeah.
You got a new hat, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was like, no. They asked me what I was going to be. I was like, no, I'm not going. I'm going to be drunk.
That's what you go as.
That's what I'm going to be. That's what I'm going to be Halloween.
That's the Sarge we all know and love.
Otis.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going to be tonight.
Hey, Andy. Just let it kill him.
Some good news. I'm going to throw this on out. You need to go tell your brother, your sister, your mother, your uncle, your cousins, your grandma, your grandpa, your friends, your enemies, your frenemies, anybody that you know that WBCP is now digital. If you haven't listened to your radio, turn it on.
You can hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can hear WBCP is on.
It's all clear digital sound.
The wind is blowing right now, and it was crystal clear as I was coming in.
Yep. We're sending the signal out to the transmitter via the internet. We hooked all that stuff up a couple of days ago, and for the past couple of days, it's been sounding terrific.
Did you go up on the tower? Was that you?
Not my job.
You know,
I ain't climbing nothing over a foot.
Now
I know it's not your job, but as a good U.S. Army soldier,
101st
Airborne
Air Assault guy,
right?
Less.
hold on. We walk out of planes.
Well, you can walk up that tower.
No, it's
You had
different.
to at some point in time to walk up that tower so you could jump
If
off of
the
it.
sergeant says, take that hill, soldier, what are you going to do?
Take that hill.
And if the sergeant says, climb that tower, soldier, what are you going to do?
For what?
Aye, aye, sir.
I mean, you know, you have a right to
be court-martialed.
no, to not accept the order if it's not, you know.
If it's not a legal order.
Yeah.
But climb that tower is a legal order.
Not for me, it's not.
I know. Down by the motor pool, there's a rappelling tower. I know you've been to the top of it.
So what's your point?
There's only one way you got to the top of it. It wasn't by crane or elevator.
Did you ever hear this? You look like 100 pounds of chewed bubble gum.
No, I haven't.
Never heard that one?
Because I never look like 100 pounds of chewed bubble gum. No. Now, you, on the other hand.
Wow! Smack right in the face.
Exactly.
Boomerang.
Exactly.
But it's crystal clear, digital.
Digital, it sounds absolutely
Spread the word.
fantastic. And
WBCP.
and we're not through yet. We got, as you see all the boxes, we got a lot of stuff in there we got to hook up, and it's just going to get better.
You could be heard in Easter Manor.
And we can be heard in Easter Banner, imagine.
Yeah, well, I know right
Straight
now.
across town.
I know you can be heard in I've been driving around Champaign today. Everywhere I was at, you could hear it. So
Good. So, basically, the biggest complaint was, all that static and all that. Well, we don't have that no more.
right. So you can't use that as an excuse.
Not anymore.
Nope.
Not anymore.
So we're gonna get like new mics and stuff.
All that, Joe.
Man.
All that.
What about those of us in the back row? We at least gonna get a mic stand?
He's asking for too much, ain't he?
I know it. Only been here, a few months?
Right. Don't like it.
Now he asking for stuff already.
It's racial.
Is that what it is?
It's racial. It's always racial with Mike.
We'll give you one of these.
He got to get the news.
We'll give you one of these.
At least I can drive around here and not get stopped.
Oh! Let's move on to sports.
What? Did he just say that?
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
But that's how he is.
Wait till you get out in the parking lot.
Right. And get stopped.
I just know that Anthony Cobb doesn't listen. So, all right. I'm good.
Speaking of stop, that Bumgardner or Bummer or whatever his doggone name is, pitcher for Madison. That's a girl's
Madison
name.
Bumgarner. Well,
He throws like a girl. Monet Davis.
and she'll be quite happy for that comparison.
There you go.
He, for 3 games, well, 2.5 games, completely shut the Royals down.
You
They
know,
scored like 1 run in however many
in
innings he pitched.
about 24, 23 innings.
Ridiculous.
Me and Mike were talking before we went on the air, and remember before the series started, we were trying to figure out who would be in the World Series, and I said that you can't apply logic to any of this stuff. This was a classic example of no logic baseball. There were games where you had scores of 11-4,
10-0. Game
10-0, game 6. Go back to game 1 and 2. Was it 7-2?
Something like that, yeah.
Just all over the place in terms of the outcomes of the game. And then you get to game 7, and you're riding 2-2, and then you get to 3-2. And you're just waiting for that explosion to happen.
Right.
And it never happened.
Never happened.
And then you're talking about how great Bumgardner pitched. And then Gordon comes up and hits one that's misplayed in the outfield. And now you got controversy.
Kane.
No, that was wasn't it Gordon?
Oh, no, Kane was on yeah. You're talking about the 9th?
Right.
Kane was on first.
And you got a guy that has the opportunity to score, to tie the game.
Oh, no, he would
have been thrown out.
Yeah, he sure
Okay,
would have.
I know he would have been thrown out.
Yeah.
All of us conventional wisdom baseball players know he'd have been thrown out. But going back to my statement about the illogical.
Right.
Do you
send him?
Do you send him because what do they say? You never get the third out at home.
You never run out. Yeah.
Yeah, you never run a guy out.
Third out. Yeah.
But you got Bumgarner pitching and you can't hit him.
Hadn't for 5 innings.
The ball's bobbled in the alley. He's coming to third. Do you throw logic to the wind and just say go, and maybe the throw is errant and he scores to tie the game?
No.
Yeah, but when he was coming into third, cutoff man was catching that ball.
Yeah.
And he looked like he had a little piano. It wasn't a baby. It wasn't a grand, but it was a baby grand piano on his back.
Oh no! When he was ready, it seemed like he was taking 2 steps in one spot before he moved up one.
Yeah,
That's how he was running.
He was struggling. I'm with you. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I'm just saying the way this series played out. Do you throw caution to the wind? All of us baseball aficionados would say throw your hands up and stop him at third. But this one time,
This the 9th inning.
you're at home. Go.
As it turns out, what if he did run in the third out? And this guy made the out, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of things have to happen correct. And I know you got Buster Posey behind the plate catching for San
Well,
Francisco.
first of all, you got to have a good throw.
You got to have a good throw. It can't skip, hit that dirt pedal. Posey's got to pick it. Kane's got to make, if he doesn't make a great slide, Posey's got to tag him.
He's got to slide towards the cheese dip and the beer and stick his hand back.
Stick a finger out.
And if he hit it, and they got 1,000 slow motion cameras there to watch every angle. And think about that. Imagine if we ended the World Series on a replay where he's sliding in, it's bang bang, and you don't know what the call is, and then they got to go and put the headsets on.
Some dudes up in New York, it all come down
To him, and he's shaking while he's looking at a screen.
Well,
HD.
I don't want to be to blame with it. I mean, either way, they're going to talk about it.
So here's what he does. Well, what'd you guys call on the field? Well, we called him out. Well, he's out. Because it's not going to be on me.
But excellent ball games, all of them. This is one of the
excellent
first
series.
Yeah, this is one of the first series that I actually sat and watched all 7 ball games.
Bro, I'm not going to lie. I said I did all that. I mean, I may have watched one, but
No, I watched all 7.
You missed a lot of good baseball.
no, I watched them, and enjoyable. It goes, we talked about how we got to get kids back in the game, and these games being played, at prime time, which I understand why it's about money and all this other things. But I think when we go back a few weeks ago, I said, we were trying to figure out who would be the best. This just proves it doesn't matter when you get good baseball, and there are people who appreciate good baseball. It didn't matter who the teams were that were out there. And for Kansas City to be 3 outs away from not even getting into the playoffs, they had to win the play-in game against the A's.
Right.
For San Fran, once again, the even year.
Well, the first 2 wild card teams in 20 years or something. The only, or the second of only 2 to make it to the World Series.
And then we asked the question before the series started, when I started talking about going to Mike's point, wild card. And I said, is it diminishing? Obviously, it's not.
No.
Not this year, it didn't.
Because we got 2 wild card teams in there.
Bud Selig was probably one of the happiest men in baseball to see this happen.
Yeah.
That's the reason why we got these wild card teams.
Yeah. Now, the folks in Kansas City ought to be awfully, even though they're runner-ups, ought to be awfully proud of what that young team did.
Did you hear them after the game was over? They were still chanting, "Let's go Royals."
Oh, yeah.
Even after the game was over.
You got a guy 90 feet away from home plate to tie the World Series. If that's where your season ends on a negative, I'll take that negative any day.
It wasn't a negative.
No, I'm just saying, if
It
that's
would've
the
been-
negative,
it would've
I'll
been
take
a-
that any day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Game 7, yeah.
Now if they get beat 10-0 at home, okay, that's one thing. But to have that guy 90 feet from the plate to tie the game up,
The chance.
but that's all you ask for in sports. And all you can say when you look at it from the Royal standpoint is, man, wait until next year. Never felt so good than to be a Kansas City Royal.
If that ball had took one more bounce out in the outfield, he might have been able to
He
score.
would have scored. He would have scored.
Yeah. All I know is that it created some drama that you ain't seen that kind of drama in a long time.
Oh, I was up hollering, "Go, go, go!" But once he turned second, he got in the same spot for him.
I'm telling you,
He was
the moving company pulled up with the truck and was like, "What delivery? One baby grand piano?"
I'm like, he's not gonna make it.
He said, "I tell you what, just put it on my back. I'll carry it the rest of the way."
He's not gonna make it.
Well, it just shows in Game 7 for 5 innings that old good pitching will beat good hitting any day. How true that is, because Baumgartner was just light.
He comes in after 2 days rest and throws 5 innings.
Now, I was talking yesterday to a guy, and shouldn't Peavy and them have to give up their game checks?
You would think, right?
You pitch 1 2/3.
You think
I can throw 1 2/3.
You think so?
Well,
I didn't say what would happen. I'm just saying I can throw 1 2/3. But you figure you're supposed to go in Game 7 and give me at least 4.
yeah, you got to at least give me the 4th.
Hey, I could have had the bat boy go in and give me 1 2/3.
And the bad part was, it's not like the score was 7-0 at that point in time. It was what, 1-0, 2-0?
2-0.
Well, Game 7. All cards are being played today.
Hey, I said when that game was started, you might see 19 pitchers because each pitch, that's what that series was riding on. Where
So critical.
Your managers are sitting there going, "Okay, Sarge just threw 3 pitches. All right, get the right-hander warmed up."
They were all balls. We can't.
We ain't gonna let that happen.
He getting ready to throw the fat one up there in there.
And it's got sauce on it.
Exactly. But excellent game. Baumgartner makes me hate him even more.
That means he's a real good player.
Yes, he is.
If you hate him,
Yes, he is.
Because you don't hate too many people.
Not too many. But, seeing what he done to the Cardinals, hoping that the Royals would be able to come in, because you guys were making them sound like, oh, this team is young, they're feisty, they're going to be run, this, that, and the other. I'm saying, all right,
I told you.
let's go ahead and get this Bumgarner dude, but he shut him down. And one other thing you must know, Royals didn't run as much as they did
one stolen base in the
during the regular season and the playoffs.
You think about it, it's tough, because imagine if they'd have run themselves out of the series. You're the manager and you're Ned Yost, and now you're at the podium and 100 cameras and microphones in your face.
You got to do what got you there, Joe. You know that. You coached before.
Yeah, but when you get to the big dance like that, it's not as easy to pull that trigger as it was in a play-in game or a divisional series or championship series. This is the World Series.
The pucker factor comes into play.
Say that 3 more times.
I can't.
Well, it's digital.
Twice.
Say it twice.
Oh, yeah, okay. Pucker factor.
Still, you do what got you there.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but Mike is making an excellent point. When you get to that point, it's tough to pull that trigger that you normally in a regular season game, or like I said, an early play-in game, because you don't want to be sitting there being scrutinized by the national media. I know you ran in the championship series.
All the phones all up in here.
There you go.
Yeah.
But why did game 3? What were you thinking? And you're sitting there going, yeah, what was I thinking?
Come on, Joe, it's part of the job. Comes with the job.
Yeah, but you just don't want to. You want to keep your job too.
Come on, you made it to the World Series. Well, are they gonna fire you because you told them that?
They ain't gonna fire Yost. Even if the Giants had swept Kansas City, they wouldn't fire Yost. And I think part of and I could be completely wrong, which happens a lot, but nonetheless,
that's why you take medication.
Yeah. Well, not for that. No. You got a really young team in Kansas City, and you don't necessarily want to mess with their head that bad either, too. So Kansas City's good. They're real good.
Yeah, well, I will say this, as both of you said, great baseball, great pitching.
Yes, it was.
Great excitement, and a great series. And this is why, for those who say, baseball's boring or whatever.
No, it's not.
They have no clue. The drama that was created on every pitch and every play in that series is why baseball, to me, I don't speak for other folks, but to me, it's still American sports. So, but that being said, the season is over.
Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Well, before we close out the baseball season, we want to pay our respects and our regards to Tavares, Oscar Tavares, the St. Louis Cardinals outfielder who was killed Sunday night along with his girlfriend in a traffic accident. He was 22 years old. Just came up in the Cardinals organization this season. Hit a home run
second at bat
a week ago in the NLCS.
Hate to label people, of who's going to be the next this and the next that, but me being a non-Cardinal fan, I guess I can be as most subjective as possible, but the next Albert Pujols or the next great Cardinal hitter
died in a car accident Sunday night.
That when they flash that news, I think back to when I was a kid, when the news flashed that Roberto Clemente died in a plane crash, taking stuff down after an earthquake in, what was that, Nicaragua?
Yep, to Nicaragua.
And that the difference is you got to see Roberto play a long time. He just got his 3,000th hit, but it was the fact that certain people have that, they call it that it factor. I believe Oscar had that it factor. Mm-hmm. He was going to be that guy in St. Louis, and to have his life cut so tragically short, that may have that ripple effect throughout the Cardinals organization for some time to come. But
I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but they turned the lights on in right field at Busch on Sunday night.
Yeah, I
Kind of a
saw
little tribute, which was really sweet.
Yeah,
And what
I
I
saw
really found super classy, and I don't know that Major League Baseball had anything to do with it, I would hope they did, but the moment of silence before Game 6 in Kansas City. And what was interesting to me about it, you didn't hear a sound.
No.
And normally, you know, you can hear some rumbling every once in a while, you know, somebody being an idiot or whatever, but it was just, it was silent.
His buddy,
Perez, one of
the pitchers for Kansas City.
Kansas City, yeah.
You see the effort he gave in Game 6? You know, and he's only 23.
Right.
So it was a kindred spirit that was shared throughout Major League Baseball in terms of that loss. So
It was just, it just felt bad.
Yeah, it did. It really did.
I got a text message about it that, hey, did you hear about that Cardinal player, Oscar Tavares died? And I'm like, well, whatever. And I went on to, you know, the internet, and I was just like, wow, are you kidding me?
Everybody got a date.
just don't know what it is.
God's never wrong, they say. Or that higher power, or whoever it is.
And with that, let's give Oscar and the end of baseball the old WBCP moment of silence. We only got a few more months to spring training.
156 days, I think.
See, there you go. We counting down already. We counting already. NBA season got underway a couple of nights ago.
Who cares?
Yeah, he does. He's an NBA fan. They had a segment on CBS News last night where they talking about the money that LeBron James has brought into the city of Cleveland since he returned. It's ridiculous.
Yes. Well, they need it.
It's ridiculous.
You now understand how impassioned the fans were when he left and why they had such an emotional response and why they're so happy to have him back.
Last year, only 12 games sold out. This year, all 41, 42, how many is they play it on? Sold out.
And they're going to be on a network every other day.
Right. And if you noticed yesterday, ESPN basically had a love fest with LeBron in Cleveland. From the time you woke up until the game was played, to the point where I think LeBron got worn out. That's why they lost.
He's tired.
He's tired from partying.
Against the Knicks, no less.
Right. Because the night before, the Knicks looked like the Washington Generals.
Didn't they get beat by Chicago?
Yeah.
They got beat by the Globetrotters. That wasn't the Bulls. That was Clark Lemon and Curly Neal in the game. But LeBron coming back to Cleveland, you know, I know, like Mike's, there are some people who don't like the NBA. I like the NBA, or I'll change that. I love the NBA for this. I think, you know, we watch college basketball and you get excited for team. Team is the thing for college sports. The emotion that's derived from when you see a team go on a run in a tournament, or, you know, a special play is made or something of that nature. But just like baseball, when you truly appreciate the skill of the athletes in the NBA, that's when you can appreciate. Because I know a lot of people out there will say, well, why watch, you know, because the game, it doesn't matter what the score is for the first 3.5 quarters, you know, you only need to watch the last few minutes. And I think it's because guys are at such an elite level in the NBA. You know, when I heard somebody say, well, they never play any defense in the NBA. You know why? You can't guard the guys in the NBA. When you're at that skill level of where they're at and where the rules are set up now, you cannot physically stay in front of an NBA player. I don't care how good you are.
Right.
And the reason why I bring that up, you just talked about the Bulls and the Knicks. The Knicks stink, right?
Absolutely.
Did you see Shane Larkin turn Derrick Rose around like a spinning top?
Didn't watch the game.
Well, once again. But the point is, Derrick Rose coming back, but he's considered an elite NBA point guard.
Yes.
Shane Larkin, rookie point guard, didn't play last year. Barry Larkin's son, shortstop from the Reds. And he turned him around like a top because physically, you cannot stay in front of you. Talk about hands.
Yeah, you used to be able to hand check back in the day.
Right, you grab a guy, you can guide him, and or a guy came to the lane, a hard foul, or those rules are gone. And David Stern did that, and here's the result: is you get to see the display, the athleticism that these guys have. And I think that's why when you watch a college game, I go back to the word team.
Well, in college you can't hand check anymore either.
No, but it's team defense. You're coming to the hoop, all four of us slide and collapse. You kick the ball out, we go out to our man. You see that. But the athleticism and the level that these guys play at, they're moving at such a faster pace that you try to collapse, and they're still getting by you.
Well, the Spurs last year were a really good example of that.
A good ball movement, what they had a good example of.
But even on defense.
But even still, if you can't get in front of your guy, he can make the pass a lot quicker than if you're in his face trying, doing whatever.
Right.
And Spurs were a good example of it.
I think the other thing, wait, Mike, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I get excited about the NBA.
Screw it, game two.
When
Call me in May.
when the playoffs are around, because when I watch an NBA game, you got guys that are I don't want to say tanking it, but you got guys that are taking games off because it's they play most of them play is 3 out of 5 days or something in a row or something like that, whatever that is. So I understand that, and everybody's positioning themselves to either get the number 1 pick in the lottery or to get a good seed in the playoffs. So to me, the regular season of the NBA is pointless. Just seed the top 8 teams or whatever and just go at it in each conference.
But it's just like baseball.
I understand that, but baseball has never been bring it down court, throw it in the shack, he knocks 7 people over, dunks, and that's it. Baseball's never necessarily been that way, and for a period of time in the NBA, that's all you saw. Everybody had a big guy, round mound or rebound or shack or whomever, bring it down court, throw it in the shack, he either knocks people over and dunks, or he throws it right back out to Kobe and he takes a 3. That to me is not basketball.
And that's why I appreciate it now more than ever, because the big man has gone the way of the dinosaur.
Yeah, for the most part.
And the buffalo. And
Myers Leonard.
And Sergeant Rock. And now the emphasis in the NBA is on the 2 and the 3 position.
The Stephen Currys of the world.
The guy who can create, get his shot, and things of that nature. And I think there's, like I said, there's an appreciation that I think, the subtle appreciation of the things that I talked about earlier. If you're just sitting there watching the game and guy comes across half court, passes across, and a guy takes off to the basket next to him, he lays it in or dunks it, everybody's like, that's too easy. But you got to understand why it's so easy, how good these guys are. And I think it has displayed itself on the international level, because in FIBA basketball, you see we play these other countries, and like the team this year that played in the World Cup. Who do we have? Derrick Rose didn't even play. He was just rehabbing on his knee. Kyrie Irving, guys that were on that particular team, and they weren't considered the quote-unquote stars of stars.
Exactly.
But now going back to the point that the season has started, you now see the thing that also is intriguing about the NBA is how the balance of power can be changed by the move of one player. LeBron leaves Miami and goes to Cleveland, and Cleveland is anointed as the odds-on favorite to win the Eastern Conference, because LeBron James, along with Kevin Love, get with Kyrie Irving in Cleveland and with the other pieces that they have.
Well, and here's the other thing, talking about LeBron coming back to Cleveland. Kevin Love's not in Cleveland right now if LeBron's not there.
Right.
So you have that trickle-down effect, if you will.
But even with that fact, we're still only talking about 2 guys.
Yeah.
Good guys.
Change the factor. Now, if you take 2 guys in the NFL, they make a team go from good to very good. You do that in baseball. but they cannot affect the game every time
Right.
the way a basketball player can affect it in the NBA. I think the other thing that you saw with opening night, Derrick Rose is coming back with a vengeance. I mean, he
scored, what, 18 points, didn't it? Something
just,
like that.
and tonight they play
In
Cleveland.
22 minutes.
And I think his coming out party against New York, in the city of New York, the funny thing about that was the way Carmelo Anthony was looking down at the Bulls bench a couple of times. Like, I had a chance to be with those guys.
Yeah.
And I took the money.
I should have.
Why did I listen to her?
Right. And she's like, you dummy.
Oh, no.
Now give me half of 124 million.
She's sitting up in the penthouse, just as comfy
I
as
need a new car.
Had a conversation, the Lakers have lost 2 games in a row. And I had a conversation with a guy last night, and I said,
Laker fan?
He's a super Laker fan. And I looked him straight in the eye and said, now, Kobe's back, but the Lakers aren't.
Isn't Nash out for the season?
Nash is out for,
Julius Randle's out.
I mean, Nash is out for carrying groceries. You know, he screwed his back up lifting bags or something. Randle broke his leg 13 minutes into the season.
That was ugly.
And what I was going to say about the Lakers is them not being back. You've given Kobe, in essence, $48 million. Your team stinks. These 2 guys we just named are out, so they're going to be bad regardless.
Better.
Do you make the decision right now, hey, Kobe, tell us where you want to go. Pick the team that you want to go to, and we'll make it happen. Because I think, to me, there's nothing worse than watching an aging superstar on a bad team. Because he can score his 30, but they're still going to lose by 30.
Still going to lose.
Right. So no matter what Kobe does, you know, and then when he starts to force things,
It makes him look bad.
right, and it tarnishes the image that
We come to know.
that's it. He's, you know,
Oh, I think that image is pretty tarnished.
I mean, he put a little spit shine on it afterwards, you know. He buffed it up a little bit, and he improved it after Colorado.
Poor Kobe.
He didn't go back to Colorado.
Right, he doesn't even fly over Colorado. He takes the
detour. Let's go to Albuquerque and then come around.
he takes the southern route.
Now, you ask him how many states it is, he's 49.
There's one you're missing, go 49. 49. Not at all.
Ask Vanessa, I ain't missing nothing.
Right. Oklahoma City, they start off the season without Durant. He's out for 6 weeks with a Jones fracture.
What?
Will somebody tell me, when did they start naming injuries? Liz Frank, Jones. I'm waiting for the Sergeant Rock concussion. I've already had one of those.
Oh, man.
Those usually on Friday night. And
About 9:30.
9:30. You wake up Saturday morning. What in the world hit me?
Where am I?
Son, that was what you call a Sergeant Rock concussion.
You'll be all right.
But, you know, he's out with a foot injury, so now, you know, last year when Russell Westbrook was out, everybody was like, let's see how KD plays without him. We're seeing
Russ is going to go nuts.
Oh,
Yeah, I got hurt last night. Hurt his hand. It's like the Tasmanian devil with a basketball. Russell,
slow down.
take the tight pants off, the shiny jackets, and slow down.
That's Russell, though. I think he doing it. You know what they call that energy drink? Want to give you wings?
Red Bull?
Yeah, that's what he in there drinking before ball game.
Yeah, but you know, in college he was crazy, 100 mile, 200 mile an hour all the time too. So I mean, it's not like it's new and different once he got to Oklahoma.
But you know,
there's nothing else to do.
But you know, he probably thinks that if I slow down and play any slow, I'm gonna mess around and hurt myself. Well, get hurt.
But he got hurt in game
He
2.
was holding his hand, going back to the locker room.
Right hand injury last night. So, I mean, my thing is, I know some guys play at a higher rate than other guys, and, you know, as Mike says, some guys will learn to pace themselves through the season. But this dude is, you got to get to 82. And the only way you can get to 82 is you got to get through 1 to get to 2
to get to 3.
They then get right. So that's why I'm saying slow down. You got to get there.
Well, NBA season underway. What they play 82 games.
82 games.
They was talking during the preseason that some of the players wanted to knock it down to 40 something or 60 something like that. You know.
We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, what a bunch of wussies.
Wasn't that LeBron that was saying that?
Yes.
I think LeBron and a couple other guys, you know, and I think what you're seeing is that the opposite of what we see in the NFL. You're seeing the players have a lot more influence in the NBA game than what you see in the NFL. NFL, they talk about cutting the preseason by 2 games, but adding 2 more games to the regular season. But the guy's still getting paid the same amount of money. So I think what you're seeing there, we talked about this before, about labor relations. The NBA players have a lot more control of their situation than NFL players, and that's why you heard that conversation.
Well, let them keep 82. Man up like they do in baseball. Play 100 and some games.
That's why baseball players don't even know what days of the week it is. They play so many games.
But back to baseball, I put this on my Facebook status the other day. I said over 2,000 plus games were played this past summer, and it all came down to 1 game Wednesday night.
Yep.
That's baseball.
One other thing we didn't talk about with baseball, the rumors of Joe Madden.
Ain't a rumor. According to all the experts that know,
he left.
Supposed to know.
You get fired from Tampa Bay and you go to the
he
quit.
Didn't re-up.
He didn't re-up. Yeah, that's a good way to play it.
Right.
Cubs fired Rick Renteria.
Dude.
Hey, there's some baseball people ain't real happy with Theo Epstein nowadays. They thought it was kind of low rent what he did to Renteria.
Well, what's wrong with Madden? Maiden, or whatever his name is.
Joe Madden.
What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
Well, he just set himself up for probably the most lucrative managerial contract in the history of the game by not staying. Look, paint the picture. Tampa Bay. Who comes to a game in Tampa? Nobody.
Dick Vitale.
Right. Well, he don't even know where he's at. Hey, baby, we're going.
He can only see half of it.
Right. Make sure he don't sit on the third base side.
Yeah.
But you can come to Chicago. You already have 40,000 screaming drunken fans, and that's when they're losing.
And that's when the Cubs are in another city.
Okay.
Doo-doo-ch. Night. Make sure to tip the waitress. But now you come to Chicago with all this youth, just like we just talked about with Kansas City, and Joe Madden comes there and he has a chance to take that lump of clay and try to mold it in whatever he wants. And even if it doesn't work, which, for 119 years it hasn't.
How many again?
Well, who's counting? Let's put it that way.
All right.
Not me. Damn it. Son of a... But now you go into that situation where if you do mold it and lightning strikes one time,
Chicago's good for another couple hundred years.
No, the world ends then.
Well, that's true.
Well, they just got to have one winning season.
One World Series. Not even winning. They win the World Series.
All right, come on.
With Joe Madden.
You stretching it.
What have you been drinking, man?
You stretching it.
What have you been doing when you were driving around town?
You're stretching it.
Oh, you saw me, huh?
Yeah.
I thought I got that powdered donut off my lip.
If they get in the playoffs, Chicago, the north side would be happy.
Right. But I'm just saying, World Series, we're just talking about...
Winning season first.
Well, I mean, they've had winning seasons. Don't make it seem like they haven't had winning seasons. So
what was the record last year? 62 and what?
Wait until next year is what we say. If it's 62, then it's 100. Easy math when it comes to baseball season. But imagine Joe Madden, winning season, playoffs, Crazy Joe, World Series. What happens to the city of Chicago?
It blows up.
It blows up, yeah, because they're going to lose the World Series.
Right, but imagine Joe Madden, what does to him as a manager.
He blows up.
He's a Hall of Famer. So that's why you take it.
He's the guy that took the Cubs back to the World Series. And he can write his own ticket forever, the rest of his natural life on the north side of Chicago.
As long as Bartman doesn't come to the games.
Here we got season tickets.
Yeah, because everybody's too drunk to figure out who he is. As long as he don't wear the green turtleneck and the Walkman, he's good.
He'll be all right.
Right. Probably got contacts now, no glasses.
Shaved his head.
Ready to go.
Change the look.
So, yeah.
Well, look here.
Got glasses. Works.
We got to take a break. I got to go finish a contract, so I won't be here for the next segment. I got to go finish it before Pearl come back here and yank me out of this chair.
Never seen that before.
Yeah, we don't want to see it happen now. 'Cause
It could get ugly.
it could get ugly. That's right.
But I think it already is.
So we're going to take a break.
Uglier.
You two can handle the next segment. We're going to talk a lot about football. I went,
We can do that.
went to go see them play Minnesota during the homecoming game. Pretty decent ball game. No,
Yeah.
Joe's like, what?
Yeah,
I dig the uniforms though. The uniforms are cool.
We're gonna save it for the next break.
Okay.
Right.
So,
We're up there doing.
Joe,
contract.
yeah, I gotta do this
You
contract.
get snatched up by your head.
Yeah. So Joe and Mike will be back with the next segment right after these.
He just gave me the finger.
Yes, he did.
Welcome back, Talking Sports, WBCP 1580. Ivory and Ivory.
Are you sure?
Kind of.
Or were you waiting to see if he was paying
It
attention?
was like a French vanilla and
Yeah. Caramel.
Mike Cox, Joe Stovall. Sergeant Rock is indisposed at the present
He's
moment.
working, believe it or not, folks. We should turn the camera around and show it.
He's doing some administrative duties as we speak, but we're in the second half of the show, and last week, Illinois, 28-24, victors over the Minnesota Golden Gophers, homecoming.
Before we get to that, I'd just like to point out that we should, like the Dan Patrick Show when they go to commercial, we should keep everything live because we have some interesting conversations in the break.
When you say stay live, meaning just
There's
video
There's like a 5-second
delay.
just
See, we
in
don't
case.
we don't have that because
Yeah.
if we did,
Well, Sarge's telling me that they can like tweak it over there and all that new stuff. So maybe.
I don't even know if he knows what a power button is on that new stuff.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you could be right. Anyway,
We might need to do like a float a trial balloon up on that just to see
yeah.
how that works. But lively discussion, like he says, off the air, but back on the air, and talking U of I football.
Good win.
Homecoming. 77th anniversary of somebody.
That ghost
Yeah. Scooby-Doo.
Wheaton, something,
Some-
ice guy, something whether
They wore gray
for red.
for the Confederacy.
They wore gray for red.
Right. Illinois came out in their alternate uniforms, took on the Gophers. The Gophers were 6 at the time. They were 6-1, leaders of the West Division, and I think for the most part, most of us did not expect anything different than what had happened since the beginning of the season. Riley O'Toole, starting in place of the injured Wes Lunt, played a very, very serviceable and commendable game against the Golden Gophers, but surprisingly the defense, Vangelo Bentley with a fumble recovery and touchdown return,
Which salted the game away, so to speak.
and the Fighting Illini won 28-24.
I was going to say what was even more impressive than Vangelo doing, becoming the only player in LA history for all the returns for a touchdown was the way the front seven played. And they finally played like we've been hearing all the experts say they should play for 3 or 4 years now.
Well, one thing Tim Banks talked about before the game is that because they had the bye week,
Right.
it gave them time to really study some of the nuances of what they were doing and make the adjustments that they needed to make.
But they were tackling.
And you know what's amazing about that? You talked about front seven and, as you just said, tackling. And sometimes it might just be the adjustment of front foot, placement of shoulders, aligning your hips.
Right tilt, right
angle,
whatever
that's
may be.
it.
Yeah.
And that could be the difference between a guy breaking through for 40, 50-yard untouched run to a guy only getting 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And I think that's what you saw against Minnesota. And I think the other thing is you get backed in the corner like this team has been, how are you going to come out?
Right.
And, not to downplay the victory. It's not like they beat Ohio State, who we'll talk about a little bit later on. But they did beat the team that was in the lead in the West at that time. but they still had to get a fumble recovery with 3 and change left to take the lead. You know, they're down 24-21 at that point. You know, and I think that's why I'm saying the irony of this whole situation is Banks has been maligned, the defense has been maligned, and then to get a defensive score in the fourth quarter to take the lead and subsequently win the game, you got to tip your hat to at least the defensive side of the ball.
Yes, except for the last 85 seconds of the game.
Why can't we just stop at the 3-minute mark and walk off the field and everybody get popsicles?
Yeah. But how do you get the ball back with 4 downs with 1:25 left in the game, and you end up having to punt the ball back to Minnesota, and you get Tim Beckman, are you listening? A special teams defensive penalty that gives Minnesota another chance. I understand not wanting to take the foot off and all that stuff, but why does not Riley O'Toole take 4 snaps and fall down? That's all he had to do.
Because it's Illinois and it's homecoming and
I understand Minnesota had a timeout, but if you do the math, even with Minnesota's timeout, Minnesota doesn't get the ball back.
Well, let's see if this caller can do the math at 359-9227. Talking Sports, talk to us, caller.
Yes. If by some act of God, Blackman or Beckman, excuse me, I'm going on the Wayback Machine.
Oh, you was in a... You said Blackman. Whoa.
Yeah, I know Black, but I did talk about the Wayback Machine. Anyway, if the current coach do survive, the defensive coordinator will be the sacrificial lamb. And statistically, it's hard to argue him not to be, because you guys touched on some key fundamental things. When you guys got to joking around about tackling, my memory took me back to the Purdue game where at least on 2 consecutive plays, they had long runs where basically they were untouched. Think about Nebraska, where they amassed close to 500 yards on the ground. I mean, it's a hell of a game, excuse my language, close to 500 yards in the air. But on the ground, your defense is just pathetic. So I hope that the current defensive coordinator got his resumes all together, and he can't use this stand as part of his point of reference, because for whatever reason, he won't be around too much. And he's probably a decent coach, and I'm sure a lot of his shortcomings, or the team's shortcomings, definitely has to do with talent. But when you give up that much type of yardage and points, the Bucks got to stop somewhere.
Excellent point.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate your calls. Call us anytime. Talking Sports, WBCP 1580.
Oh.
Appreciate the call. The ghost of Bob Blackman calling in.
Yes, sir. I do remember. He made a good point about talent, but we go to the last minute 25. That ain't got nothing to do with talent.
Right.
That's got everything to do with coaching, period.
But let's go.
Go ahead.
Let me shoot back at you with this. If you haven't been in that situation in a while, remember when we were...
Oh, it's football, man.
It's like riding a bike, right?
Yeah.
But
it's like you shooting a jumper from the top of the key.
But if you haven't been in that situation for a while as a head coach, and specifically in the Big Ten, now they've been in those situations in the non-conference game, but he's only won now 2 Big Ten games,
right?
In going on 3 years. I think what happens with that staff, I'm not going to just say Beckman, with that staff, sometimes you look up the scoreboard and you go,
what?
Are we winning?
Right.
Well, what do? Well, I saw some other teams get in a victory formation. Should we do that? No.
But how much does he get paid a year?
Too much.
He's supposed to know.
No. Right.
I mean, and people can argue whether or not Riley O'Toole lived up to his talent level, whatever. All you want for the 4 or 5 years he's been here, but he's a smart young man. And even I can make it look like I tripped over somebody's foot as I'm falling down to let that that game clock run.
Right.
Why is he going back 7 yards to hand it off to Donovan Young or Josh Ferguson, just taking the chance? And I know Beckman could go, well, Coach Cubitt called the play. You're the head coach, dude.
Right.
You're ultimately responsible. Fall on it. You haven't won a Big Ten game since you've been here.
And I think the other thing, to your point, obviously I was being sarcastic.
Yeah.
But to your point, you don't have to be a big-time college coach to understand numbers.
Right, exactly.
You can look at the play clock, and you can look at the game clock.
Divide it.
If the play clock is at 40 seconds, and the ball is snapped at 2, and now you have another 40 seconds before you have to snap it again, and you look at the game clock, and you see it winding down, you continue to let it to wind down. But I think here's what I'll say to you on that. Because I watched an NFL game last Sunday, and a coach got too cute on that and ended up losing the game in London.
Right.
And probably will lose his job at the end of the year. Because he did the same thing. I won't say he did the same thing, but on third down, he threw a pass. It doesn't matter if you get the first down or not. It's how much time is left on the clock.
Exactly.
But I think these coaches try to outsmart themselves, and they end up outsmarting themselves.
Yeah.
Just take the knee, as you said, let the clock run, and move forward. But I think that one play is a microcosm of what frustrates Illini fans on a larger level. Mm-hmm. If you can't manage 85 seconds, how are you managing the
12
team?
games.
That's it. How are you managing the season? How are you managing this? How are you managing that? And going back to the caller's point about Tim Banks being the sacrificial lamb, he probably will be, unfortunately, but in Tim Banks' defense, he probably is like, please get me out of here.
Right, yeah. I can say all the good things in the paper, but oh my goodness.
Get me out of here. If I got to coach
players.
If I got to coach this system, this team, fire me.
Right.
And give me, because he obviously was a good coach.
At Cincinnati, he was a great coach.
Top 10 defense there.
And Cincinnati's not a Big Ten school. Nothing against Cincinnati,
right.
But he's proven he has the ability, when given the players, the talent to fit whatever scheme he's running, he's proven that he can do it and do it well.
Yeah, and because, as the caller said, he would be the scapegoat, I think he, at this point, would say, you know what?
Okay.
Let me be the scapegoat.
I'm good.
Get me out of here. Let me go somewhere else, because when you're looking at what's happening now, and if they're not going to bring in a higher talent level to where you don't need a fumble recovery with 3 minutes left to win a homecoming game.
Well, I mean, you can even go back and look at arguably the last two coordinators, big name coordinators. Koenig, who went to North Carolina, didn't have the necessarily, or doesn't this year have the talent. Mm-hmm. Defense isn't that great. And then when they got rid of Mike Loxley, he's doing great at Maryland, doing excellent at Maryland. So it's not a matter of whether or not the guys can coach, because they obviously can. But my question is, the two kids that got the penalties called on them, are they going to play another ball game this year?
I was just going to say, what kind of discipline will fall on their shoulders in regards to making mental mistakes like that? Because
that offensive lineman, I don't know who it was that got the holding call, he should still be running them steps.
Well, and I'll parallel that. I talked about that NFL game.
Yeah.
That was the same thing that happened in the NFL game, and that's how the Falcons lost the game. Under 2 minutes, Detroit basically has no timeouts, and you run the ball, which is the first stupid thing, instead of just taking a knee.
Right.
So you put the player in the position to make the mistake.
To fail.
And then he fails, and then the clock stops, and then the next play as a coach, instead of just taking the knee again and running 40 seconds off the clock, you throw the ball, the receiver drops it, and now you only got 5 seconds off the clock, and you have to kick.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of dominoes in the line, but all it takes is that first one to fall. Now, you know what's funny about it? We're saying all this stuff, and they won the game.
Yeah,
spite of all of this stuff, they won the game.
They tried hard to lose it, though, at the end.
So now coming up Saturday, going to
the shoe.
Columbus. Now, I think everybody remembers the infamous 2007 Juice Williams game. Ohio State's ranked number 1 in the nation.
Which they just showed on BTN yesterday.
Look at basically, and not to diminish that victory, are they looking ahead in that game? Who knows? But Juice played a fabulous game. Illinois wins that game. Now you're going there. Kind of different circumstances. But Ohio State's
but similar.
They're a highly ranked team. Your team is 4-4, coming off a homecoming victory. Riley O'Toole, as we said, did a serviceable job last Saturday against the Gophers. And now you're going up against a young but talented Ohio State team. Obviously, the brunt of this game falls on the defense. And what can they do in terms of at least, if not shutting down Ohio State, slowing down Ohio State?
Controlling them a bit.
Will the ghost of, we had the ghost of Red Grange, will the ghost of Juice Williams, even though he's not dead?
Well, he'll be on sidelines, so
right. So
he can remind
we'll
kids.
have a living ghost running around.
Wonder if he'll be in gray.
Do you think this is the game? You talked off the air about Aaron Bailey. Do you want to put him in that suburban neighborhood and scare everybody? Does Aaron Bailey get the shot that he should get to give a change of pace to Ohio State?
I think, and as we talked off air, we made the point that, a lot of local radio, we heard, pros and cons about why Aaron Bailey only played one series, and we both agreed that O'Toole was playing really well.
Right.
And the one series that Bailey was in, they seemed out of sync, which could just be because it's, you're changing quarterback, so it takes a series or two. But with O'Toole playing as well as he did, he was leading rusher in the game for Illinois.
Right.
And big, slow Riley O'Toole, who's never been known as a runner, and he leads you in rushing. So I think if Riley struggles a series or two, you have to put, if you're going to put Bailey in, you got to leave him in there for more than the series, just to see if he can settle into it and everybody can settle into it, etc.
Right.
But based on the way O'Toole played not last weekend, but the weekend before homecoming, who would have thunk it, as they say?
Right. Well, I will say this. You're going into a game, you're 28-point dog.
Right.
It's a night game. Prime time, nationally televised game. This is when weird things happen.
Right, well, yeah.
And we've seen weird things happen with this Illinois program over the years.
Up at a big house in Michigan, a night game. Rocky Harvey went nuts.
That's it.
Back in the day.
Do we look in the tea leaves and say, this is a chance for another weird... Always like when you're a road dog and the number is like this and you're coming off a victory and you're going up against a freshman quarterback.
He's playing lights out.
The key here has got to be early turnovers. Illinois has to get Ohio State to turn it over early. If they can get them to turn it over early, you create doubt in a young quarterback's head. You then force them to maybe play more conservative than they'd like. And if you get them to play conservatively, you keep the game close.
Right.
And once the game stays close, that's when that weird factor kicks in.
Right.
That shanked punt.
Right.
Or
David Cobb fumbling the ball.
See, because when the game's close, all you need is a flip of field position.
Yeah.
One or two times can change the course of the game.
Well, and going back to the Minnesota game, there was a pitch to Ferguson, sweeping right, I guess it would be, where he dropped the ball and it bounced right back up to him. At that point in time, I kind of got the little, okay.
Because usually that ball does not bounce.
Yeah. And even on the Cobb fumble, it bounced. Viangelo was there, but it had to bounce right for him to pick it up and go. So I think if the defense can play with a similar effort and results, because they had 7 or 9 tackles for loss against Minnesota, then I think whether it's O'Toole or Bailey, they can do enough to win them that football game. Do I think it's going to happen? I saw on the Deuce Gazette all the experts said no, but the weird factor comes in again.
Well, I'm gonna say this: if it's a one-score halftime, meaning Ohio State's 14-7.
14-10,
14, right. If it's a one-score separation at halftime,
pucker factor.
That's it. And that's where that weird factor we just talked about. And don't be surprised. But if Illinois comes out tight and gets blitzed early, where Ohio State just goes deep, and they drop 2 scores in like 3 minutes on them, like you said, you might as well go ahead and pack a lunch because it's going to be a long day, long evening in Columbus.
I just hope the kids in Illinois understand and gain enough confidence from Minnesota to know that, okay, we can play with the big boys. Because it always kind of, I don't know that that's ever a conscious thought. I would think it wouldn't be. But the effort and the product you see on the field leads a lot of people in this area to believe they can. So hopefully Minnesota, not only the fact that they won the game, but that they played really well.
Right. Well, the other thing you got to remember, think about last year's game. Even though Ohio State came in here and Carlos Hyde, ran wild in the fourth quarter, and Braxton Miller, those 2 guys are gone.
Right.
Illinois put, was it 35 on the board?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Well, and Ohio State, this is a young, I keep going to this youth factor. This is a young Ohio State team, and
with a healthy Joey Bosa, who didn't play last year.
Yeah.
And Nathan Shieldhouse is gone.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of changes and ebb and flow on this. But I'll go to the point that if this is a one-score game at halftime, I give Illinois a true puncher's chance to win that game tomorrow night.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Other things in the Big Ten now, not football related, but administrative related. Dave Brandon, the athletic director at Michigan, resigned today. Yeah. Now, usually,
talking about falling on your sword.
Yeah, and he cited, and this goes to your point about falling on the sword. He cited ticket prices and concession issues
because they just cut student ticket prices last week or 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. So he said that those were the 2 issues as to why he was turning in his resignation to the school president.
He's going to stick with that story, right?
Right.
Okay.
So what that tells you, I think anybody who's been involved with collegiate athletics knows, and we saw it with when Mike Thomas came in. When an athletic director leaves a program and a new AD comes in, he doesn't come in just with his staff and the administrative side.
He hires his own people.
And that means football.
Basketball, I think Beeline's safe.
Yeah, I think John Beilein is safe, but this is when coaches get transitioned out, and everybody's been after Brady Hope. This is not Michigan. This is not Michigan football that you're seeing them play. And Dave Brandon, as opposed to firing his friend, fired himself. And I think that's commendable and admirable on his part that he would respect Brady Hope as much to say, you know what, I'm just going to step aside. Brady, I know they're going to fire you, Brady, but I'm not going to fire you.
Right.
So that you got to applaud Dave Brandon for that classy move like that. And remember earlier when you told me about my conspiracy theory, looks like it's going to come to fruition. Mm-hmm. I can see now the old Bo Schembechler comment of a Michigan man. Mm-hmm. Whoever the new AD is in Michigan, first person they're going to bring in, Jim Harbaugh.
Well, the first thing that's going to happen in the new AD is you're going to get a whole bunch of alums. You're going to get a whole bunch of athletic department people going, you need to bring in a Michigan guy.
Right.
Because you don't want Bo talking to you because it will hurt you.
Right.
So, yeah, Harbaugh. I heard somebody else's name too. I can't remember who it was.
Les Miles.
No, it wasn't Miles. It was Harbaugh and another former player. And I don't recall who it was, but it
there's a relatively well-known player, not in terms of a national level, but in a Big Ten environment, you would know who he was. So I can't remember who it was, but yeah, they were talking Harbaugh and somebody else.
I know they've talked Les Miles and the fact that before Brady was hired, they wanted Les Miles.
Right.
You know, but they went ahead and made a move. Speaking of making moves, we're going to go to this phone line again for 359-9227. Talking sports, talk to us, caller.
Hey, Joe, how you fellas doing? This is John, man.
Hey, John, how you doing, sir?
Oh, man, not bad. Hey, I was hoping they hired somebody from Clemson. You think they would?
That Michigan would hire somebody from Clemson?
Since I'm a Clemson alum, I was thinking they'd get somebody from Clemson.
I think if that happens, there'll be C4 put on the outside of the big house, and the walls will come tumbling down, John.
Okay, you guys take care.
All right, take care, sir. Wishful thinking from a Tiger fan, but
Well, we were talking about Miles earlier. I mean, even though LSU's down this year by LSU recent standards, I still don't think he leaves. Even to come back to, even if they said, "Here's the keys to Ann Arbor, the big house in Chrysler Arena. It's yours. Do whatever you want with it."
Right.
I don't think he leaves LSU.
you know, I look at it from this standpoint. Nick Saban talked about this, about getting stale. You know, staying with a program too long and then you become stale. And if you think about what's happened in the past, you know, Urban Meyer left Florida. You know, we've seen other guys, you know, kind of take off.
Well, even Saban's a great example of that because he's 5-6 years, with the exception of Alabama, he's been 5 or 6 years tops, and he's going somewhere.
Right. And I think, you know, once you get to that point where, you know, for lack of a better term, you become comfortable as a coach in a program, and now 10-2 is acceptable, and you go to your New Year's Day bowl, and, you know, after you go and speak to alumni and accept extra money, etc.
Get paid $6 million a year.
And I think now that Michigan has fallen off the radar of college football in terms of being a ranked team or a prominent program, to me, this is the perfect time for Les Miles to come in, because now you come in, your honeymoon period is longer for two reasons. You just said it. You're a Michigan man, and if you bring Michigan from, you think about last year, they were 7-6.
Yeah, I think so.
Right now, they're 3-5. They got Indiana, and if they lose to Indiana,
which they very well could.
Exactly. You could see Brady Hope being fired right there on the field. You know, but you bring a Les Miles in, and he immediately infuses that Michigan attitude of, for lack of a better term, that arrogance that Michigan has had for decades.
Well, but who better to do that than Harbaugh?
Well, and that's why I'm like, either or, I think works perfectly for Michigan right now. And I think the other thing it does is it can justify a lot of the expenditures in terms of the rehabilitation of the stadium, the additional skyboxes and ticket price. You know, there's a lot of different things.
But here's the question, though. All that, I understand what you're saying, but who's going to want to come up to Ann Arbor, the big house, when an hour and a half to the west, Sparty's still beating his chest?
That's the reason why you want to come, because now you come in, Sparty has won 7 of 8, Ohio State's won 9 of 10, and now you come in, and the first or second year you win.
Well, if you don't, because you got to recruit against Antonio, who right now in the state of Michigan, even they're
he's still Michigan State, Mike.
I understand that.
He's still Michigan State. I mean, that's where I'm at with that.
It's still the program in the state of Michigan. It used to be Michigan State, Grand Valley, Michigan.
Right.
And sorry, Ducky. And now, I mean, even kids that may not have got that Michigan State look or that Michigan look would go to Grand Valley. They had a huge amount of success there, as you know. But D'Antonio, I mean, it's Sparty. It's not.
I'm
not Big Blue.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say to you right now, that's Michigan. That's the winningest football program in the history of college football. And you come in and you take, it's like, you think about what happened with Notre Dame a few years ago, and the issues they had for about a 7-year stretch, where you know, whether it be Charlie Weiss or Tyrone Willingham, or whoever it was, you just couldn't get to that Notre Dame level. And now Brian Kelly
has done that.
And it has changed everything.
Shout
Now,
out.
but think about what happened when Brian Curley first got there and the games he was losing.
Yeah.
To Sparty, to Michigan. So that's my point. It may not happen the first year, and it may not happen the second year. But if you come in and you get Michigan back to Michigan level football,
Oh, you haven't made.
you got a statue.
But do you want to spend that 2 or 3 years listening to it?
Harbaugh would, and you wouldn't. Here's the point: you really wouldn't be listening to anything. The fact that you are coming in and
If you don't beat Michigan State, you're gonna hear a lot.
not the first year.
Oh, I think you would.
If you've lost 7 of 8, and now you come in and it goes 8 of 9, I think the honeymoon period is there because they'll say, let's give him time to turn it around. If you come in, here's the issue I'm pointing out to you. When Lloyd Carr left, Lloyd Carr didn't leave Michigan.
When he left Michigan or Illinois?
When he left,
Or no, I'm thinking Gary Muller.
right. When Lloyd Carr left Michigan, he didn't leave Michigan on a losing note.
Right.
That's why Brady Hoke is catching so much fire, because the only thing he had to do, well, Rich Rodriguez came in and really screwed it up.
Yeah.
You're coming in now, and Michigan is not even Michigan. This is like,
They're not relevant anymore.
right. So you come in and you make Michigan relevant? Oh, man.
But if you don't beat Sparty for 2 or 3 years,
Not a problem. You haven't beat them for, that's my point. You haven't beaten them
No,
for 8 or 9
I
years.
understand that.
So why are you worried about, I don't beat Sparty for 2 or 3 years? You haven't beat Sparty for almost a decade. So I need at least 2 years to get back to that level.
but you and I are not alum of U of M.
So what are you going to do? Fire him after 2 years, fire another coach? And I don't think they do that. I think whoever they bring in, whether it's Harbaugh, Les Miles, or whoever it is, will give him a 3-year opportunity to right the ship to get back to that Ohio State, Michigan level that everybody else is accustomed to.
Right.
And then you may lose year 1, even year 2 against those teams. But if the total package is turning where now you go from, like I said, they're 3-5 now.
If he's beating everybody else, to include Ohio State, then yeah.
Yeah, you're going to get that honeymoon. But if you're still playing 500 or less football, you get 3 years and you're done. You know, so I think that'll be the biggest issue.
I mean, locally, he's getting at least 4. So.
Yeah. There you go. College football playoff. They did their first top 25, loaded with SEC teams. You got a big game coming
Out
up.
of the 4, yeah.
Auburn, Mississippi State getting ready to play. Or Auburn or Mississippi
Ole Miss, yeah.
getting ready to play. It's now time, it's that time of the year where the top teams start knocking each other off. You know, because just based on scheduling. You know, we just saw last night Florida State, another game where they were
Closer than the score indicated.
outplayed for almost 3 quarters. But Jameis Winston, whether you like him or not, Jameis Winston is now showing he has the ability, regardless of the situation of the game, to take defeat and hand it back and snatch it out of the jaws of victory. And I think what we're seeing right now with Florida State, their schedule, not as tough as an SEC team. They're going to sneak into this top 4.
Probably.
They'll sneak in there. But the SEC, who's going to be the team standing at the end?
Which 2 SEC teams are going to remain in the playoff picture and who drops out? That'll be the interesting question.
I would say, looking at how things are playing out right now, Mississippi State may have that factor, and I hate to say it, but Nick Saban, you know, for as much, you know, grief as he's catching down there for not being, from
For losing a game.
losing one game, right? And now all of a sudden, oh, they don't have leaders, and give me a break. One game. I think they slide in. So now you got 3 teams in there, and now you're looking at does Sparty get looked at, or if Oregon keeps playing the way they are, and they already beat Sparty in game 2, there's no way for Sparty to leapfrog Oregon unless Oregon loses another game.
Right.
So it looks like that would be your 4 teams going into the college playoff picture.
Florida State, Oregon, Alabama,
Mississippi State.
MS. Okay. Ole Miss.
Yeah. You know, so
Yeah, Mississippi State. That's interesting. What would be real interesting is, because if that's a scenario at the end of the year,
which two SEC teams are going to play each other? That'd be interesting.
And so, there's been arguments out there that if you don't win your conference, you should not be in the. So, and the reason why people are trying to float that balloon is they're basically saying there shouldn't be two SEC teams.
Right, exactly.
So if you then pull that's the way Sparty gets back in.
That'd be as of right now, that would be the only way. Yeah.
I don't know if Ohio State, even if Ohio State runs the table, right? They run the table and beat Sparty. Is still, to your point, they're ranked 13th now. Do they get in?
There's no way they can make that big of a jump in the polls.
Right, unless everybody between 5 through 13 loses.
And even for that matter, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4 lose.
Yeah, but we've seen some goofy stuff happen during the season, but I'm trying to think of other teams who have a legitimate shot, whether it be in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, they've lost 2 games, haven't they?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think of Big 12 teams.
Kansas State, maybe?
Kansas State, maybe.
It sure as heck isn't Texas.
No. Texas is Michigan South.
Right.
And I think Charlie Strong, similar to what we just talked about with Michigan, they're giving him a honeymoon. I don't know how long his honeymoon will be, though.
It's going to get real short.
Because the way I think the biggest thing right now with Charlie Strong is the way he's jettisoning players, because he's trying to infuse this state of discipline in the Texas program. I don't know how long the Texas alums are going to wait, but you think about what Mac Brown did. He did what I was talking about earlier. He created an environment for Charlie Strong to come in, because Mac Brown for the past 5 years never coached.
Right.
He just recruited.
Yeah.
Well, we got the TO sign from the administrator, so we're gonna go ahead and take a commercial break. When we come back, last half of the show, we're going to talk about high school football. The playoffs are getting ready to start. High school basketball is a new head coach over at Champaign Central. And we'll talk about that and more. Talking Sports, WBCP, 1580. When they point the finger and wave the hand, that means the time on the clock is 3:44. Welcome back. Last 15 minutes talking sports, WBCP 1580. Myself and my friend, my commandant, Mike Cox, finishing up these last 15 minutes, and the man who's come in dressed like a caution cone
or a pumpkin.
I've never seen a pumpkin walk.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, he said he dressed like a construction worker. That would be Big Bun.
How you doing, sir?
We're good. Excuse me.
I apparently have a fan club.
Somebody walked up, individual, not supposed to be in this neighborhood, taking pictures of license plates in the parking lot. So, if you're listening, the posse's growing. Sarge got video of you. You might want to come back.
Say hi.
Because if you don't, you're going to be found. Because we deputizing everybody. Understand? Now, high school football. 2 Champaign teams in the playoffs. Champaign Centennial, 6A playoffs tonight over at Tommy Stewart Field, 7 o'clock kickoff. Chatham Glenworth comes to town, team from over by Springfield. Chargers, 6-3.
Back in the playoffs.
Chatham Glenworth, 6-3. Chargers lost their last 3 games of the season. Crystal Lake Central, Normal Community, and Normal West. As we can tell already by the weather conditions right now, wind gusts, as Mike indicated, 30-40 miles an hour. It is going to be tough sledding when it comes to the passing game tonight over at Tommy Stewart Field. What will be critical is 2 things: kicking game and the run game.
Third thing, field position.
Field position is determined by the kicking game and the running game.
Run game.
Not necessarily. You can have a turnover.
And that comes from the kicking game
Or the running
and the running game. But I think the Chargers, Austin Malbia, who's rushed for over 800 yards this season, had a fine senior season. I think the key will be the Chargers running the football with him, playing good defense, and not turning the ball over, as Coach Green just indicated, or Coach Orange, the construction worker. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock, in 5A football, Champaign Central Maroons have not been in the playoffs since 2008. And the last time they were in the playoffs, they played Metamora, the Redbirds. And tomorrow, guess who they play?
Redbirds
of Metamora. 1 o'clock start. The Redbirds 8-1. Their only loss was in week 2 to Morris. They lost 12-8. They play in the same conference as the team Dunlap, the Eagles, that the Maroons played in week 2. And basically they ran the table in their conference. They're a run-heavy team, even though they run out of multiple formations, spread, zone read, 2 tight ends. So it'll be incumbent on the Maroons tomorrow with the running attack they have of Montrell Moore and Matt Brown, both 1,000-yard rushers this year. Moore ran for 14-18 this year, and Brown 1,057. Both had 152 carries. So it'll be incumbent on them to move the chains and control the clock and keep Metamora's offense off the field for the Maroons to have an opportunity to move on to the second round of the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see how these things play out. If you're not trick-or-treating and you got an opportunity tonight to bundle up, put the ski mask on and head on over to Tommy Stewart
you
Field.
don't do that because you end up in News Gazette, bottom, scroll down the bottom, right inside.
Put the ski mask on after you get to the field and get in the stands. But yeah, it's going to be a cold one tonight. But it'll be a cold one tomorrow too over in Metamora. But I prefer to be cold in the sunshine than be cold in the nighttime. There you go. In other high school news, it was announced today that Sergio McClain will be the interim head basketball coach at Champaign Central. He will be taking the place of his late father, Wayne McClain, and Sergio will be responsible in guiding the Maroons varsity basketball team for the 2014-2015 season. Congratulations to Sergio. I know this is obviously not the way he envisioned becoming a head basketball coach, but with the opportunity to be tutored by his father, the late great Wayne McClain, I think Sergio will do a fantastic job for the Maroons. But not only Sergio, the staff that was at Central last year, all those guys are coming back intact. Verdell Jones,
2, right?
Verdell Jones Jr. You have LeConte Nix. You got PJ Keaton, Corey Taylor, and Corey Anderson, who will be over there running the team. So you basically have the entire staff back that worked under Wayne last year. And I think it was a great move for 2 areas. Number one, we just talked about from the basketball standpoint, the X's and O's. But when we talk about kids and doing the right thing for kids, I think the district got it right this time. With the tragic loss of Coach McClain and the emotions of the players in losing their leader, I think this was probably the most seamless transition they could have done by putting Sergio in the position of head coach for the mental health, not only of the athletes, but for the mental health of the program moving forward. Now, because it's an interim situation, after the season is over with, the position will reopen, and Sergio and others will be allowed to apply for the job and doing interviews after next season. But for at least one season, the Maroons will be guided by Sergio McClain.
That's good.
When's the season kick off? End of the month, this month, November?
Practice starts November 10th.
Okay.
So you basically got about 10 days away. get everything started up. So, that's the reason why, we talked about this before off the air. It was one of those decisions. I don't want to say it was a slam dunk, for lack of a better term, but I couldn't have seen them going any other direction just based on the outcome of last year, the job that the staff did along with Coach McClain did, and then, as I said earlier, the mental health of all the athletes on the team. So just happy to see that happen. You guys got anything that, we got about 5 minutes left in the show.
I want to talk. I got nominated. Is this mic on? I got nominated to coach FBU.
Keep talking.
Football team, 8th grade, and it's the first time.
FBU. Wait a minute.
Football University. Football University.
Is that like Monsters University?
Yeah, it's a big organization, and they have like All-American Bowls, and they play against East Bay. So I was nominated to coach the 8th grade team, and I have 14, 15 local athletes that never probably would have had the opportunity to get a chance like this to play in the games. Okay. I have 5 or 6 kids from Red 4 or 5 from Champaign. I got 1 from Urbana. I got 2 from Fisher and 3 from Fieldcrest. I don't know where Fieldcrest is. Where's Fieldcrest?
It's right next to Falcon Crest.
You'd think the coach would know those.
Right, you would think.
Well,
he's a construction worker.
Yeah.
Right.
So we start practice this Sunday. We'll practice every Sunday in November. We'll practice between Bloomington and Chicago, so we alternate weekends. December 6th, we go to Purdue University and play our first game. We play against Northern Wisconsin. If we win that game, we play the winner of Southern Wisconsin, Indiana. We win that game, we move on the next weekend. I found out it's in Alexandria, Virginia.
Wow.
Yes, a long way.
A lot of travel.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm glad Purdue is closer. So if we win that weekend in Alexandria, Virginia, FBU 8th grade team, Illinois, is going to Florida for Christmas.
Oh, so it's a round robin type deal, tournament style football.
So if I make it to Florida, you see I can act a donkey on TV. All games will be on ESPNU.
So how did you, backtracking real quick, you talked about you were nominated to coach this particular team.
Yes.
Is it based off of your participation in youth football here in the area? How did that occur where you got nominated?
I really don't know. A guy called and asked me would I coach the team, and I was highly recommended by some people, and I had to give him a quick resume and everything, and I'm the head coach. And I had 2 local coaches that's going with me, Emory Williams and Larry Jackson.
Okay.
They're going to be assistant coaches, and I have 1 coach out of Red Tool. So the 4 coaches here and the 4 coaches from Chicago, we're going to try to put this thing together.
Now, you said that your practices will start this Sunday?
Yes, sir.
So you guys are only going to practice on Sundays during, or
4 hours. We'll go from 10 to noon and from 2 to 4.
Okay. And how many players total are on your team right now?
I got 32 players.
And is this a regional thing? National?
The tournament?
Yeah.
No, it's a national tournament.
Okay.
It's like the NCAA have pods in your region, so this is Chicago region.
Okay.
So we got to go Alexandria, Virginia to finish out the Chicago region, and once we win the Chicago region, we go to the national part of it.
Okay. So you said you go to Purdue first. How many games will you be playing?
Saturday and Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday.
All right. Games.
2 games in Purdue. Then you go to Alexandria, Virginia.
You got to win in Purdue first.
So you got to win that, and that's what I said about regional or national. So you got to win in Purdue, and then you win in Purdue. You go to Alexandria, and you got to win there. And if you win there, then you get to go
Naples, Florida.
Naples, Florida.
So when you guys go over to Purdue, are you playing at Ross-Ade Stadium?
No, it's indoors.
Oh, okay.
Indoor facility, and it's a good opportunity. I mean, a lot of parents they're doing fundraiser, selling cookie dough, fundraiser to offset the cost of gas and meals and stuff. And I've talked to the parents here around this area, and we're gonna try to carpool and get everything, because it's 3 or 4 local kids that's on the 6th and 7th grade that made the team too.
Okay.
So it's a good opportunity for this area of the state, because they've been getting bad vibes up north about it, because I guess they were about ready to disband the Illinois football team, and because they could be getting bad talent out of Chicago, and they just been goofing off in the tournaments. And a couple coaches I talked to up north, they said, FBU was a joke. So it's my job and my staff job and the kids that we selected. Plus, you had to try for this team. You had to pay $35 to try for this team. So this ain't like, hey, little Johnny can play football. You had to run the 40. You had to do 7-on-7 shuttle drill. You had to do a lot of stuff to try out for the team to make it. I got a 8th grader that can kick 40-yard field goals. I got 3 or 4 8th graders that run the 40 up under 5. Mm-hmm. I got 3 6'2", 6'3" linemen that weigh 250 and better.
In 8th grade.
8th grade.
What did driver's license say?
8th grade.
Are they the ones from Rantoul and Fieldcrest?
No, they from Crystal Lake and Joliet.
Oh, okay.
Now, are there any subtle differences between the youth football we see in the area?
Yeah, it's a big difference. There's if you get up 24 points, game over. They consider that,
Oh, it's like Madden.
Yeah, like Madden. And there's no weight limit.
Obviously.
So anybody can run the ball, and they play high school rules.
Okay. Well, congratulations, first of all. I know you've worked tirelessly in the
I
youth
wish I
football
could have had
league.
this opportunity a couple years ago. I think I could have won me national championship.
Yeah, well, your opportunity comes when God gives it to you.
That's true.
Your opportunity is here, and hopefully you can win a national championship.
So I keep you informed about it. I got a good parent rep. She's out of, I think, Chicago somewhere. She's going to start a Facebook page. And what it is, the first practice, they got to take mug shot, head shots. Mm-hmm. So there's no cheating going on. Make sure. And
it was that a kid that took the picture is the kid that shows up at the field. And it's like I said, it's opportunity for a lot of local kids to never get an opportunity like this, because after football season around here, it's basketball. Mm-hmm. And I have there's controversy going on, like parents that call me about basketball. Is it okay? I said, there's no problem. I said, we just gonna practice on a Sunday. So I got to put all my eggs in a bowl and whip it up on Sundays. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, like I said, congratulations. Like I said, you work tirelessly around here, so it's nice when your work is appreciated by others outside of the area, and you get a chance to showcase what you do with youth sports on a local level, mm-hmm. on a statewide, regional, and possibly a national level. So, does the team have a name?
We're gonna come up with a name. So right now we Team Illinois, so we got to come up with a mascot.
Okay.
You got any suggestion?
Governors.
We crooked.
Governors. I'm leaving it at that.
That's Austin Peay.
Governors then.
Okay.
What's their chant there? We RP?
Just don't come up with Tigers.
I won't. It might be the Cardinals or the Giants.
Well, Cardinals, Giants, Royals, whatever it may be. But that's fantastic, but I'm glad that, like I said,
congratulations.
Kids in the state are getting an opportunity, and,
Even your boy made the team, Fred.
Fred's going to be there for a while. I'm going to be riding with Fred for a long time. But we're gonna grab a trigger and saddle up and ride on to into the sunset. This has been another edition of Talking Sports, WBCP 1580. Mike Cox.
WBCP 15 what?
80.
80? Okay. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Kind of blended that 80.
Okay, I know. I heard.
I did my... Well, you got to remember, when Sam is sitting here, things are different. Things are different. So when he's not sitting here, you're like...
You're not used to somebody paying attention to what you say.
Man, so you're just like, as we talked about yesterday, the go Gophers. Whoopie-doobie-doo. Big Bun, you want to say anything before we leave out of here?
Go Gophers.
For Sergeant Rock, Jazz, and the rest of the crew.
That's Commander McBragg.
WBCP 1580. I want to say a safe and fun Halloween tonight. Drivers, please, I implore you to watch out for pedestrians tonight, as the kids will be on the street trick-or-treating.
And they won't be paying attention, so you have
Parents, if you're out with your kids,
Be with them.
make eye contact with drivers before you enter the street.
and leave their candy alone.
That is up for debate. Bye-bye.